I guess they're
Normally they're very big companies.
Okay, maybe they're getting kickback somewhere else.
Maybe.
Typically in a situation like this is actually the same situation as low-cost housing. This is the same situation as gas in the 70s. You guys will not remember that, I'm pretty sure. So when the government fixes a price, or somebody fixes a price below the market, what typically happens is demand is greater at that lower price, and quantity supply is not as great. You're not going to see new bread factories going up because they're not going to invest in it, right? They're not making enough to produce more. If you take away this restriction, what happens is you have a movement up both the demand curve and the supply curve to reach equilibrium. This is like, who cares? This isn't rocket science. But the important point is, why do we have these things in the first place?
You know, I think also you need to put this kind of a price that also cost. Because in any case, in Russia, for example,
that's actually in here in supply.
The cost will be approximately the same, close to the 15 cents, and it will cover all costs.
Okay, that's in the supply curve. That's the marginal cost curve anyway. But back to the question: why do we have price fixing in the first place? Why would the government fix the price of housing? Yeah.
To cater to the people in that part of the demand curve.
Yeah, they're looking at this, right? There's a shortage, and it says, the shortage says, there's not enough to go around. There's not enough housing to go around. We're not quite clear on the bread situation, but there's not enough. Maybe you'd eat more bread if it was less. Anyway, so there's not enough to go around. The government sees poor people, no housing, people living under bridges and whatever, so says the price of housing must be low to make it affordable for everybody. Now, is that a good solution?
Not economically, but socially probably.
No, it's not even socially. That's the thing.
Because what's going on in Russia, again, the situation with the housing, rich people would just buy lots of cheap houses.
That's one of the things that happens. So you screw up the whole incentive system. You try to help by making these provisions. But what happens is, if you look at the dynamics of the curve, this is the quantity supplied, right? So if we're talking about housing, that means that the profits are not enough to encourage people to build more houses or to maintain the existing houses. So when you go into low-income areas where prices are fixed, what do you typically see? Mansions with nicely cut grass and painted picket fences? No. Broken windows, fences that are smashed. You see a lot of destruction. There's not enough profit in there to be able to maintain those properties or to encourage an increase in the quantity supply, this movement up the supply curve. So what you do is actually restrict the quantity further. If you let the price increase to here, we would get some market quantity here, and we would meet the needs of at least half these people, and then the quantity demanded will also go down at that price.
If you're looking like to refer this today, that's the big thing with the NDP right now, and the rent controls in Saskatchewan that they want to bring in. So just a little connection.
Okay. So as voters now, when you go to the polls, are you going to vote NDP because they're actually going to hurt the people they're trying to help? And it happens all the time. We think we're doing good things, but we're not. One of the
Just thinking in the case of bread, could it be to preserve the domestic market?
It could be, yeah. I'm not clear with what's going on in the Russian market, but it can be so many different things. So exports would be restricted, and there could be subsidies to help those people produce the bread.
Yeah, I think there are lots of subsidies for the big companies who produce the bread.
Yeah,
so
there must be.
Yeah.
What comes out your pocket?
One of the most interesting, I think I read this back in 111, 100 years ago, was a program, I don't know, it was an American program, I think, but I think we have the same in Canada. What do we do with our excess wheat and whatever, products, agricultural products? The If we have too much, where do we typically send it?
We need it.
We donate it to?
Africa.
Yep. So let's look at two markets. Here's Africa. And here's Canada. Okay, so we have our supply, and we might have stuff left over. Africa has a supply and a demand. Okay, so there's a quantity and price. We also know there's a lot of starving people there, especially now because of the drought and political problems. What happens when we take our excess supply and we ship it to Africa? What does that do in terms of this picture? How would you change it? Would you change the demand curve or the supply curve? Supply curve. Okay, so let's say we're going to add the same amount all the way along. So here's the new supply curve. So this is with local plus Canada. Okay, so we've given all the quantity is up here now, so this should be enough to feed everybody. What happens to the price?
It's low.
Are these guys going to be able to sell their locally grown products? No, they're competing with a product that has zero price. So what does that do to this market?
They stop farming.
Yeah, what does it do to self-sufficiency? What does it do to help to give them incentives? Price is an incentive. What does it do to give them an incentive to improve their technology, to adopt new practices, to put more land or change what they're doing? It pretty much destroys it. So we have to be really careful. When we help people through different policies, there are unintended side effects. And you can see these unintended side effects in fairly simple pictures. And so we have to think about those things. If we go back to the housing market, rather than fixing prices and screwing around with supply and demand and taking away incentives, rather than doing that, what about taking a certain amount of money and providing it for the individuals that need a house, or helping them get a job, or giving them a job, or doing whatever it is they need? It's a lot better to do that, and it's probably cheaper, than to mess with the market.
How do you deal with inflation?
How do you deal with inflation?
Yes, because it will be like kind of additional money, you know, that is hidden in the economy. It's also kind of things that we have.
You can deal with those things, but the point is not to mess around with the market. So that's the take-home message here. When you mess around with the market, you have unintended side effects. Okay? So we can look at the same thing, and there's tons of agricultural examples.